Hello, everyone. This is Sally Ganga, one of the hosts of Getting In. Most of this show will be dedicated to answering listener questions, which is always fun for us. But first, I'll be speaking with Karen Spencer, veteran of college coach in various admission offices, but also, I believe, I dug this out of my memory, a former resident advisor at Hope College in Michigan. So that was
Yes.
from a while
that
ago.
was some real unearthing. That was like 18, 19, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think it's highly relevant to our topic today, which is how to make a strong start in your first year in college. So, yeah, welcome, Karen, and I'm eager to hear your expertise, because I will confess that especially when I was at the smaller colleges, less so at University of Chicago, but like at Whittier in particular, and to a lesser degree at Reed, like you really got to know your students. And so I worried about them in their first year. I was like, is this kid really ready to make the transition, or they're living at home with their parents? Are their parents going to give them enough freedom? Like we'd run into that occasionally. So anyway, let's sort of dig right in. What's some of the advice that you have and your observations from your time in admissions and way back when as a resident advisor?
Yeah. So, coming to freshman year of college, I think could come with all sorts of feelings going to that. A little bit of like excitement, right? You get to be somebody new if you want to be, right? You can, or be yourself finally, right? One of the best things I always say about going to college is that none of the nonsense, for the most part, that happens in high school, that is what makes high school not most people's favorite 4 years, or at least can be challenging, kind of vanishes when you go to college. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but what you're wearing, who you're dating, if you're popular, all that stuff just kind of goes poof when you go to college, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I think there's a lot of excitement kind of around the fundamental understanding of that. But there's also some trepidation, right? This is the first time many students have ever lived away from home, even if you went to camp for a month, a week. The same as like for the rest of your life. And so I think, there can be some trepidation. So I think, you come to freshman year with all sorts of feelings and big feelings, and some of those manifest themselves and some don't. But I think, the very first thing I would always say is like, go in with a positive attitude about like, get involved. This is where you are, right? Like this is where you are, period, right? And whether this was your first choice school, your last choice school, the one your mother made you go to, whatever the case may be, right? This is where you're at. So let's make the most of it, right? And so kind of going in with a positive attitude, you're going to make this work. And, really kind of diving in, students who I find to be the most successful, especially freshman year, not to mention all the years, are students who really kind of join up, right? Like they join the activities, they make the most of their orientation experience, they leave their room, they do all those things that make them a part of this community, because that's what you're doing. You're leaving one community and joining a different one. And if you lock yourself in your room and say, I don't really want to be here, or I'm homesick all the time, which is fair, and you can be homesick, that's fine. But the best way to cure homesickness is not to sit in your room. Actually get out and go do other things with other people who are living the same experience you are, right? That's the beautiful part about freshman, the experience is you're all new, right? That's what I like about freshman dorms, solely freshman dorms. Nobody here is going to be like, oh, look at those freshmen. You're all freshmen, right? Nobody here knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what the library is, right? That sense of community, I think, is why so many people will say so many of their best friends they found freshman year, because that sense of unity of we're all new here and we're all kind of in it together. It's kind of like being pledges or, newbies in the military or whatever, right? There's a bond from that.
Yeah. I'm still in touch with my first year roommates. Like I can't say the same for my junior year roommates, although I am still in touch with my senior year. And even though like I would say they were fairly different from me, I remember when I moved in, like one of them had like pictures of flowers, and like I was like kind of a little mod, a little punk, and like another one was really into heavy metal, and in all those superficial ways that meant that in high school I probably wouldn't have been in their groups, just as you said, like didn't matter. Like it didn't matter at all. And I am still so fond of them, and I like have, helped the one who had older kids with college, like she, and we'd been in touch the whole time though. It wasn't like she reached out of the blue. So yeah, I think, but I do also want to reassure you, even if it's not your first year roommate, yeah, if you get involved, just like you said, Karen, that's how you are going to meet people. I know in high school, often when I suggest activities to students, they say, well, none of my friends are in that. Right. And I'm like, well, you need to get over that already in high school, but in college, you especially need to get over that because that's how you're going to make friends.
Right.
You can't pick and choose based on your friends because you don't have any yet, but you will later. You will if you join these activities.
Yeah, correct. Right. Yeah. And I think that is, again, I've never met anybody in the history of my life who ever said, wow, I really regretted joining those activities. Like if you don't join them for forever, right? Even if they're just a freshman year experience or first semester experience, great. Try it out if you like it, right? That's you get so many more opportunities to do different things in college than you did in high school. I think that's also really the blessing of college, that you can try new things out. And if you like them, great. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, I have to say too, I also recommend jobs. And I know that this seems counterintuitive, like students are like, I'm going to be busy, but I found that on college campuses, it was my first year. I think my job took all of like 4 hours a week, but I was running errands for the infirmary. And I guess actually it was like 10 hours a week, but like I wasn't even busy most of that time, but I would check into the infirmary, see if they needed anything, hang out, do my reading. And if they needed something, I'd run out and get something. But as a result, I had all these nurses, like these lovely maternal ladies going, how are you? Have you been eating? And, like, it was kind of like this sort of wonderful, like warm environment. And I just did a few things for them. And, from there, I obviously did more, like become a tour guide, etc. But like in that first year, already having a very low stress job provided another point of connection with the campus in a way that I really liked.
Well, and again, to your point about being tour guides, I think both of us would admit that being tour guides is half the way we got to our current professions, right? Most admissions officers often get there from having been tour guides, and not because I wasn't, when I was a tour guide at Valpo, I wasn't like, oh, one day this will be my profession. I was like, I'll be honest, I wanted some beer money. I was a senior. I wanted, you want to pay me $8 an hour to walk backwards in the snow and talk about a school I love to people because I'm chatty. Great. That seems like a win to me. So same thing. I wasn't looking for it to be, all of that. I just, wanted a part-time job to earn some money, and turned out that kind of led me to my future profession. So you just never know what that part-time job will lead you to.
This is also a way of building skills. I actually worked with a student who was quite reserved, and he told me that he had applied to be a tour guide because he wanted to work on that. He knew public speaking was important. And I'm in touch with him on Facebook, as is often the case. And he's actually a priest now, and he runs a seminary. I mean, it's kind of amazing, right? And I actually messaged him once, after he posted about a successful orientation, if his tour guide training had been helpful. And he wrote back, absolutely, it has been. He's like, it's like
priests talk to people in front of people all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But so even if you're not going to go into a service job, though, public speaking skills are really, really important. So yeah, look for jobs. I mean, maybe the tour guide isn't going to be the one for you, but look for jobs as well. I think that that's really helpful. And I do want to put in a comment too, even if you're going to a community college, these activities are helpful. Correct. I feel like there's less involvement when students go to a community college, but if you want to transfer, the colleges are going to look for that, and it'll help you hit the ground running when you do transfer to a four-year institution. So if you have time,
maybe even more important at a community college, because it's not built into the fact that you're all living here together in community, especially at most community colleges. So that's an opportunity to make what can feel kind of like I'm at home or I'm there, I'm not, it's not kind of one and the same, to make that feel more community oriented for sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right, anything else? How about let's talk about roommate issues, Karen. You had some great, you've had some great stories about that in the past. Not that we're going to go into all of them, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges for a lot of students is having a roommate. And not even just a roommate or roommates, if you're put in a suite, but living in community in a dorm, right? And so it's not just, do I like this person I'm living with? It's, I have to live in community with all these other people, right? So your roommate might be quiet, but your next door neighbors might like to party until 2 a.m, right? How do you deal with that? I think this can be a real positive or a real stressor for freshmen. My sister, kind of like you, loved her freshman roommate, still contact each other to this day, would still consider her one of her closest friends in college. I would not say that about my freshman roommate. We will leave it at that. I ended up moving out actually of my freshman roommate, and I was lucky that my father could afford a single. Whether there even was a single on our, I mean, that there was a lot of things that had to happen for that to be possible. But I will still say, my freshman year, even with that experience, was still probably one of my favorite years of college, and I liked them all. But I think that can be something, right? You have to learn to live in community with somebody else. And for a lot of students, they've never had to share a room with anybody. Maybe they went to camp for a week again. Maybe they have a sibling that shares a room. That might be easier for you because you've already learned how to make peace with somebody who may or may not share your living space in the way you would have them do that. But I think that the key thing there is to be patient. So for everything that your roommate does that you find annoying, they may find something that you do annoying. So maybe you think they're a slob, but they're like, why does my room have to be so neat? We're in college. Who are you, my mother? Right. So for every, some people may want to go to bed early. Some people go to bed late. This is, again, great people skills, right? Rely on your RA, your resident assistant. That's what they're there for. You're not the only person potentially who doesn't get along with their roommate. And you've got to at least do good faith effort to make it work and kind of work with that person. That's hard for a lot of 18-year-olds. A lot of people, even adults, are conflict averse. And there's 6-year-olds who are conflict averse, more or less 18-year-olds who've never had to really kind of, talk to another person and stand up for themselves in this way. So, be patient. Expect some bumps in the road. Sometimes actually rooming with someone who's not like you in some regards can be a benefit. You're not kind of bringing out the exact same thing that you bring to the table. Sometimes that can be a good thing. I also don't encourage people necessarily to live with their friend. Just because you're good friends does not mean you are good roommates. I lived with 6 of my very best friends in my senior year, and we were very clear. There were 4 bedrooms. Who could live with whom? We all loved each other as people. Some of us, we knew, we're like, that is not the roommate for me. I love you. I would go on vacation with you. I do not want to share a room with you. I think it's also good for freshmen to expand. I think if you want to live with your roommate, or your roommate is also your friend, you may not expand your circles as often, or in a way. It's not saying it can't work. It's just not something I always suggest. I'd say if you want to go to college and you're going together, great. I'd still say try to live slightly separate lives, right? Just so you'll come back together when you want to. And this also allows you to find your own path.
Yeah, I fully agree. With close friends, sometimes, if they're late night and you're early morning or stuff like that, if you're a slob, if they're neat, doesn't matter if you're best friends.
No, you're still going to want to kill them. And
choose someone else. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You also, what about having cars on campus? It's kind of funny because a lot of students complain about that. And honestly, I lived on a campus that allowed cars, but not many people had it, and we didn't really miss it.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to have cars on campus freshman year at Balboa, and you'll find that policy is not uncommon at even large state schools. I think Clemson has that. And I think that's there for a reason, so that when you get bored or lonely, or you don't like your roommate today, you can't just flee to go home, right? I've always said, one of the advantages of, the 4-year college experience and going to college is not simply about the education or the diploma. It's about learning to live in community with other people, and remembering to have quarters for the laundry. I don't know if they still do that. They can probably charge their card. We're old enough that we still have that. But a lot of this, again, like I said, the learning experiences is how do you live in community with other people? How do you tell your roommate nicely you'd like to go to bed, or the next door neighbors that it's 2 a.m. and can you turn it down? And so, or if you're lonely, right? And instead of saying, to get me out of this, I should go play intramurals or go join the choir or do whatever it is that you want to do. If you just go home every time, that's kind of enabling the problem, right? This is not helping you create community. This is not helping you build people around you that are make you want to stay on campus. If you kind of flee back home to mom and dad every time, bored, lonely, tired, homesick, whatever. So I would generally advise, unless there's a really good reason to have a car on campus, and there might be, I would generally avoid it for sure, at least till the sophomore.
Mhm. Well, and learning how to use public transit is not a bad idea. I had a student who went off to Boston College, and his mother was appalled that he couldn't have a car because she said, now I'm going to have to go pick him up every time. Notably, we live in Connecticut. So I was like, well, he could just take Amtrak. Like
California or something, right?
Yeah, that would, but I'm like, he could just take the train. It's super easy. You could pick him up in Stamford. And she was like, the train. And I'm like, the train, it's a done thing. I promise you, it's a good option. And I thought, this kid of all people, this is a good thing. He's going to figure out all these other ways to do things, that he doesn't know about. So, but that one definitely made me laugh a little bit. I'm like, I promise the train is an option. It's a good option.
I promise it'll be fine. People do this every day. They'll figure it out.
Exactly. You can take it with his friends. They'll have a good time. It'll be good. All right. Any last things? I mean, I think, I
just know, again, just go in but go in with an open mind. Go in knowing there's going to be some bumps in the road. Like I said, my freshman year had the highest highs and the lowest lows of my 4 years. Mm-hmm. And it's still my favorite year. My girlfriends and I actually, last time we were all together, all said, if you had to pick your favorite year of college, which would you pick? And almost all of us picked freshman year. Some picked sophomore, but most of us picked freshman year. I just think like the newness of it is exciting, right? You can kind of be whoever you want to be. You can, you weren't allowed, if you didn't feel like you could be yourself in high school, now you can be, right? You can be whoever you want. And hopefully that's yourself, right? Without any of the pressure of having to conform like there often is in high school. So I think look forward to that. Be prepared for some bumps. That's just going to be, that will happen. Maybe of course it's harder than you anticipate. Your roommate is not great. It's way snowier here than you were envisioning. I'm looking at you, Velvo. Whatever, it's a little colder, hotter, whatever the case may be. But just kind of go in with a good mindset that you're going to make the most of it.
I completely agree. Yeah. And I'm just going to do a last highlight of the ability to be your authentic self is truly pretty exciting, I think. So lean into that. If there's some dorky thing that you didn't do in high school because you thought it was too dorky, well, embrace your inner dork. Now is the time.
Let that fly. Have at it.
Exactly.
I promise somebody on this campus will find that charming and you will find your person that way.
Exactly. Or your people, a group of people. Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Karen.
You're welcome. Nice to see you, Sally.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break now, but when we return, Shannon Vasconcelos and I will be answering listener questions.